Coming up on this episode of Tech News Today, Apple talks about its Prism relationship, Samsung's going LTE advanced, and is Instagram going to get Vine? All that and more coming up.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CashFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Monday, June 17th, 2013. Tech News Today is brought to you by Gazelle, the fast and simple way to sell your used gadgets. Find out what your used Samsung Galaxy, iPhone, and other smartphone is worth at Gazelle.com. And by Shutterstock.com. With over 26 million high-quality stock photos, illustrations, vectors, and video clips, Shutterstock helps you take your creative projects to the next level. For 30% off your new account, go to Shutterstock.com and use the offer code TNT6. And by Ringcentral. We do everything in the cloud, and that's why we love cloud-based phone systems by Ringcentral. Zero startup costs, and Ringcentral is $20 per month per user. Try it now with a 30-day risk-free trial and buy one desk phone and get a second phone free. Up to 20 phones. Call 800-543-9980 or visit ringcentral.com and use our promo code TWIT. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Sarah Lane.
I'm Aya Zakhtar.
And I'm Jason Howell.
And Tom Merritt has the day off today, but the show must go on. We'll keep you up to date on the most important stories in the tech world. Put them in context for you, starting, as we always do, with the top 10 stories of the day in the news views. Apple has spoken up about the U.S. government's Prism program and revealed that between December of 2012 and May of 2013, the company received around 4,000 to 5,000 requests for user data from the government. Apple says that data wasn't always limited to foreign intelligence inquiries, though, and it included requests for information to help find missing persons or solve crimes.
Officials from the National Security Agency say that it does not collect cell phone location records. The agency says that while it is authorized to collect geolocational information about callers, it chooses not to. The NSA claims that the data does not provide enough value to justify the resources required to use it.
Facebook's holding a mystery product event this Thursday, June 20th, and a source tells TechCrunch that the company may be updating Instagram to let people also take and share short videos in the service. If this is true, it would seem to be a response to the popularity of video sharing services like Twitter's Vine, but also Vidi, Cinemagram, and SocialCam, which have all at one point or another been dubbed the Instagram of video apps.
Researchers over at Darmstadt Technical University in Germany launched Pcie, a new form of DRM for ebooks. Now, Pcie alters punctuation and words in the ebook so that each reader gets a unique version of the book. The researchers think this form of DRM is more consumer-friendly as it does not lock down the book to a particular device or account.
Samsung plans to sell a new version of its flagship Galaxy S4 smartphone with data speeds twice that of what's currently capable, said J.K. Shin, Samsung's head of mobile business. The phone will be sold in South Korea as early as this month, and the new S4 will use LTE Advanced 4G technology, an upgrade from conventional 4G called LTE, or long-term evolution. LTE Advanced offers data transmission at up to twice the normal 4G speed, and the phones will be powered by Qualcomm chips.
Forget about SATA SSDs. Samsung announced it is mass-producing new PCIe solid-state drives meant for notebook computers. The Samsung XP941 SSD should be able to read 500 gigabytes of data in about 6 minutes. That's 2.5 times faster than the fastest SATA SSD. Samsung has already cut deals with several computer makers.
There's a new top supercomputer in the world, and it's the Tianhe 2 from China. I hope I'm saying that right. This supercomputer is capable of performing more than 33 quadrillion, yes, that's a real word, calculations per second. The Tianhe 2 uses 32,000 Xeon processors with 48,000 Xeon Phi accelerator processors for a total of 3.12 million processor cores linked together.
It just beat out your MacBook Air, I think.
Yeah, just barely.
Kotaku says it's got a picture of one of the upcoming iPhone game controllers from Logitech. The controller looks to be a piece of black plastic with a joypad on one side and buttons on the other, with a large hole in the middle to house an iPhone 5. Game controller support is coming to iPhones with the release of iOS 7.
Skype has officially rolled out its video messaging feature. Now you can send messages to your friends on iOS or Android or BlackBerry or OS X, even Windows. The feature was released as a beta in February with limitations. Now that it's official, you can send unlimited messages for free.
Netflix and Dreamworks Animation are teaming up again. Dreamworks Animation will bring more than 300 hours of new content to Netflix's Just for Kids section. Dreamworks Animation will base these new shows on its existing movies.
This episode of TNT is brought to you by Gazelle. Do you want the new Samsung Galaxy S4? Very likely, if you're watching this show, you're into it. Or maybe the HTC One, or maybe the iPhone 5. You've got all sorts of choices. But before you upgrade, make sure you sell your used phone or other gadget to Gazelle for cash to put towards what you really, really want. You can find out how much your product is worth at gazelle.com today. Just go to GAZELLE.com, type in what your item is, let Gazelle know what condition the item's in. Don't worry if it's scratched up a little bit, because Gazelle will even take broken iPhones. And you get a risk-free offer for your gadget or gadgets, and that offer is locked in for 30 days. When you go ahead and send your product in, you'll get paid fast by check or PayPal, or even if you choose an Amazon gift card, you'll get an extra 5%. Gazelle is now buying back a larger selection of tablets than ever. In addition to the iPad, you can now select Samsung, Google Nexus, Kindle Fire, Microsoft Surface, Asus tablets. So there's a really good chance you can get some money for the stuff that's just laying around that you're not using. Be honest with yourself. Go to gazelle.com to get an offer now for your Samsung, your iPhone, your iPad, or basically anything. What are those gadgets worth anyway? Take a minute and go to gazelle.com to find out. Sell your used Samsung Galaxy or iPhone today at gazelle.com. And we thank Gazelle for sponsoring this episode of Tech News Today. Joining us now to get into a little deeper into the discussion of our stories is Loon Seidman, co-founder of the Independent Media Network and writer for CTTechJunkie.com. Hello, Loon.
Thanks for having me back.
Of course. Thanks for being with us. It's a lovely Monday indeed. All right, let's start off with Apple's announcement. Well, it was a blog post basically, trying to set straight the story on what it did or did not know about PRISM and what it's sharing with the government. In a blog post, Apple said, wrote, quote, "We first heard of the government's PRISM program when news organizations asked us about it on June 6th. We do not provide any government agency with direct access to our servers, and any government agency requesting customer content must get a court order." They go on to say that between a period of time, December of last year and May 31st of this year, they got between 4,000 and 5,000 requests from the law enforcement. Between 9,000 to 10,000 accounts or devices were specified in those requests. But Apple seems to want to make it clear that, in general, a lot of this had to do with a missing person or a theft of an iPhone or another Apple product, in cases sometimes of possible child kidnapping or Alzheimer's people, where the gadget might be able to track down the person. So it was not always, these high numbers about some sort of, foreign terrorist threat. Lon, how closely have you been following this story? I mean, this sounds, what Apple's saying sounds a lot like what Microsoft said last week, and what Facebook has also said is, listen, based on what we can tell you about what we're providing to the government, this is what's going on.
Yeah, I've been following it very closely. In fact, I talked to a Yale legal scholar and wrote a story up on CTTechJunkie.com this week about it. It is a very complex issue because there's rights of American citizens, but there's also international users of these services that don't have those same legal protections. And in many cases, especially in the case of how the NSA looks at data, they have to prove that 51% of the conversation or more is being conducted with a foreign agent who is suspected of some kind of international terrorism. And that changes the dynamic significantly in how the data can be handed over and what needs to be asked in order to get that data. So, it's incredibly complex. The statements have all been very coordinated. I think fairly confidently that the tech companies have been pretty good about protecting our data, but there's things that they can't really protect us from when the government asks for things. And that's my chief concern. And I think certainly in this case, we should really start to be mindful about what we're putting in the cloud. Because even if it is encrypted, I think in the case of Apple's iMessage, if they're saying it's end-to-end encrypted and Apple doesn't have the keys to that data, we all know how easy it is to buy a new iPhone and suddenly get everything synced up again. So it's not like this stuff is completely inaccessible. And things that might not be decryptable or interesting today might be later. And I think that's something people need to keep in mind.
Yeah, Apple has said conversations that take place over iMessage or FaceTime even are protected by end-to-end encryption. So, not Apple or anybody else just can't get in there. In the past, it has been said that iMessage uses really strong encryption. It's very, very hard to sniff out. And they also say we don't store data related to customers' locations or map searches or Siri requests that would be able to link back to a specific person. It's data, but it's not related to a person or a phone UDID. I asked you, do you buy that? Do you think that we should consider this sufficient?
I want to buy it.
Yeah.
You always want to believe that your data is secure. I was just looking at the way Apple is actually putting up this message, and it's on their front page, and they actually keep a little link that's always on the bottom that says Apple's commitment to consumer privacy, which I don't know if the other companies bothered to do that, to keep it up front. You have this big iPhone ad, but then you see that they have an easy link to find this information because Apple needs to make sure they're controlling the message when it comes to this kind of potential invasive behavior with their gadgets. It's interesting to see Apple saying that we didn't know what it was, we hadn't heard about it, and that's been their message. That's been their consistent message since this whole Prism thing broke, weeks ago. It did take a while for Apple to put a message together, though. It's what now, the 17th, and that's when it came out. So it's hopeful that they're keeping stuff secure, but you never know.
Lon, you made the point a couple minutes ago that it all seemed rather coordinated. I mean, the numbers are sort of in line with other larger company numbers, that were implicated in providing the government details in the first place. Apple said our legal team conducts an evaluation of each request, and only if appropriate will we retrieve and deliver the narrowest possible set of information to the authorities. And then they go on to say, sometimes when we see inconsistencies or inaccuracies in a request, we will refuse to fulfill it. Does Apple seem like it's kind of status quo as far as they're cooperating if they absolutely have to?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think largely it's not in these companies' best interest to give our personal information over to the government because, we are entrusting them with privacy. And you think about it, there is more personal information entrusted with private corporations now than there's been in any time in history. This is a pretty significant change in how we conduct our personal lives. And they have a tremendous responsibility to keep that data private. And the problem I have is that certainly there is a very coordinated response here. And it has to be because if the companies reveal too much, they could very well be committing a felony. This is exactly the same problem that prevents this issue from being discussed in Congress appropriately, because every time somebody wants to say something and criticize this program, they can't actually provide the details, and then they just look kind of crazy. Oh, the government's snooping on you, So it's becoming increasingly difficult for us as the consumers to get the information we need, and I think that's the challenge we're running into here. My biggest complaint with all of this is that the government and the corporations and everybody just says, trust us, everything's going to be fine, and that's not how this country should work. We've designed our system to not have that much trust placed in the government, and instead have the people having control and the ability to see what's been going on there. So this will continue to develop as time goes on, and we'll have to see where it goes. One last point on this is that don't forget that if CISPA had passed, which has been kind of going on and off the legislative radar over the last couple of years, a lot of the penalties that some of these firms would get or be handed to, be inflicted with if they were to violate the rights of their U.S.-based customers, would be granted immunity from any of those kind of penalties. And I think that's an important point here, too, that, they were trying to get the same immunity that the telecoms were able to get.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, shall we move into something that's a little bit more kid-friendly, Ayaz?
Much lighter, Netflix and Dreamworks Animation put together a really big deal to bring 300 hours of new programming for Netflix's Just for Kids section. Now, Variety says that Dreamworks Animation has been looking for ways to ramp up its internal television business and has been considering a launch of its own branded cable TV channel. And now there's going to be a branded section inside that Just for Kids section called Dreamworks Animation. Now, shows are going to be based on the films, but Dreamworks wasn't specific as to which movies will turn it into shows. They have things like Shrek and How to Train Your Dragon, Kung Fu Panda, those kinds of things. And Netflix looks like it's trying to replace some of the children's programming it had before. It let a deal with Viacom expire that Amazon wound up picking up the rights to things like Dora the Explorer and SpongeBob. Lon, do you think this is going to have any impact or large impact on Netflix's subscriber base?
I subscribe to both because I like getting that Amazon free shipping thing. And I try to ship like really big stuff through there sometimes too. So for me, it doesn't impact things. But, the stock market's been reacting to all these ebbs and flows in Netflix's performance with a lot of this content they're holding on to. If you saw, last week or a week or two ago with Arrested Development getting some mixed reviews, and that it actually impacted their stock price. So I think it'll have a bit of an impact. But you know what? These services are inexpensive enough. And especially in the Amazon case, you're getting a whole different set of products in addition to the free streaming. I'm certainly going to keep my Netflix subscription. And, when my daughter gets a little bit older, I'm sure she'll be watching these things over and over again. Hit the replay button on it.
Yeah, 300 hours. I'm looking at that number. It seems like a lot of content to be on Netflix. I'm having a real hard time understanding how Netflix is going to grow a subscriber base when they're not like a cable company where they can just give you a stream of everything. It's that you could watch these things and then leave. Sarah, do you think when it comes to children's programming, there is this rewatchability that's going to keep people on Netflix?
Yeah, I think so. Let's say your kid absolutely loves the Shrek movies. I mean, the Shrek movies, I don't even know if they're done. I only saw the first one, but it's like, they come around every couple of years. You got these, big Hollywood stars who are voicing the characters. It's a big budget type of a thing. If you can spin that off into some sort of a series where, depending on how young your child is or kids, it might not have that same quality. It might be not quite the same caliber, but it's still kind of that branding. The Shrek story kind of goes on indefinitely. There are going to be a lot of kids who are into that. And then there are going to be a lot of parents who are sort of like, thank you, Netflix, for just offering me a bunch of programming that's good for kids, because the kids are happy and so are we. And I hear time and time again from Netflix subscribers, there are those of us who say, the instant queue, there isn't really that much good stuff on there. And then parents say, oh, but the kids section is awesome. It's a life send. So
it seems interesting that they will have all of this content. And like Lana's saying, though, you have to have both services. If your kid wants to watch Dora, or they want to watch these new maybe Kung Fu Panda things, you have to have both services. And now that we're getting a lot of these exclusive deals, I wonder if that's gonna just I guess bug parents. You're going to have to pay a lot of money for this. This is what, $80 a year for Prime. It's $8 a month for Netflix. I don't know if I want to keep paying attention to their changing catalog, because my kid wanted to watch a movie the other day, but he wants to watch the same movie all the time. I don't know if they even need 300 hours of content. It could just be 2 hours. I think a lot of kids would be happy.
It's almost like Best Buy and all that, these branded sections inside Best Buy. It's like Netflix has its Dreamworks section, and it's got this, whatever. It's an interesting way to be ramping up the titles, because it's not just genre based, it's studio based.
Lon, do you think we're going to see more deals with other studios like this, that we're going to see lots more sections within sections?
I think so, and I think it's going to create a lot of confusion. And the one thing you don't want to do is confuse parents, because that's a big market that you could lose if you don't keep a good relationship with them. And there's certainly a lot of media, like the blogs and other sites, about things that parents like to purchase. So I think there's going to be quite an incentive for these folks to really try to hold on to these subscribers and try to keep them informed about where these things that they like can be watched later. One advantage Amazon has, of course, is that you can buy the videos and store them in your digital locker, so to speak, and be able to access them at any time. So that might give them a little bit of an edge here.
Okay, let's move on to this whole Facebook event happening this Thursday, June 20th. Last Friday, event invitations went out to journalists, curiously via snail mail. You don't see that much anymore. And the event said, not any information really, a small team has been working on a big idea. Join us for coffee and learn about a new product. Now, the event invitation itself had a little, coffee stain on the side of it, or something supposed to look like that. So some people were like, maybe this is a new RSS reader that Facebook could be unveiling. It kind of makes sense. You're reading your news with your morning coffee type of a thing, as people tend to, parse this information.
It's quite the leap.
It is quite the leap. But when I read it, I went, oh yeah, I would not have thought that. But maybe there's something to this coffee thing. Why else even say that? It's kind of implied. Matthew Keyes, who's the former deputy editor of social media for Reuters, released a blog post that video was being tested internally at Facebook. This was a few weeks ago. But that the videos would be short, a la Vine videos on Twitter, something between 5 and 10 seconds in length. And so some folks have said, well, maybe that's what this is. What this is. This is Facebook's event to allow Instagram to start adding videos to its user stream. Now, Mashable previously reported that Facebook indeed might be launching RSS feeds, but TechCrunch is now saying that they have sources that say, yeah, it sounds like Instagram may actually be thinking about releasing videos in here. And you might say, well, that's just crazy. I mean, Instagram is so popular because it's just Instagram. But after Twitter debuted an Android version of Vine, which was at the beginning of this month, there was a tipping point on Twitter. Shares of Vine actually were above shares of Instagram photos on Twitter. Part of that may have to do with the fact that inline Instagram photos are no longer allowed on Twitter, which is something Facebook pulled rather than Twitter. But the trend seems to be going in the direction of these short videos. There's, Vine is a bona fide hit. Lon, what do you think? Do you think that Instagram needs videos? Do you think this is a terrible idea?
I think they do. I mean, Vine has been really addictive for some strange reason. Partly, I think I love how people work with the limitation of what Vine has, and it's kind of easy to make those little stop motion videos and stuff. So I've been enjoying it. I've been enjoying watching some of the more talented people do things on Vine, because my talent on Vine is quite lacking. But I think they need to do that. I think Facebook has been largely trying to replicate a lot of successful things lately. I mean, Poke is a great example of their fear of Snapchat to some degree, and that wasn't very successful. So we'll see where it goes. I, for one, would love to see some more competition in the RSS space. So the geek in me is hoping that coffee stain relates to your morning newspaper, but we'll see.
What do you think, guys? The RSS reader, you said the coffee thing is a bit of a stretch. But taking that out of the equation, the idea of Facebook having an RSS reader basically makes sense of all that information that's coming through your newsfeed versus something like short-form videos. They could certainly take the popular Instagram medium to another level. What do you think is a better direction for Facebook to go in?
I don't know if Facebook wants to get into RSS just for the idea of explaining to people what RSS is. That's kind of a nerdy thing. If Google moved away from it, they wanted to put their resources in other areas to explain how you can subscribe to news and things like that. That seems like that's already Facebook. You like something, it shows up in your feed. It's not necessarily RSS, but it has that same feel. So maybe they'll integrate something like that. I just don't see that being a huge announcement that they would send out snail mail invites for. That maybe it's Instagram with those 5 to 10 second videos that TechCrunch was talking about. I don't know if that's going to be such a great thing or a big hit or anything. It just seems like, okay, a little video snippet thing, another thing that Instagram could do, or Facebook for that matter. I don't know how excited I can get for this. I'm really curious, though. June 20th is also the day I think Samsung's doing an event. I'm kind of curious if there's something about both of these companies doing the same thing or doing something on the same day, if there's something there. Because Samsung just keeps releasing tons of things, and everyone's like, well, what are they saving for the 20th? What's coming on the 20th? And if it's somehow related to this, I think that'd be kind of neat.
I think I love the idea of if Facebook indeed intends to open up the Instagram community to videos, how do you do that, as delicately as possible? Instagram has a huge community. There was, of course, the backlash from the iPhone people when the Android folks got Instagram, like, they're polluting, the hashtags are out of control, and everybody's kind of over it. And Instagram, it's, the brand is so strong that if you have a new feature, that's the place to embed it. But at the same time, how do you do that without alienating the people who love Instagram the way that it is? And
that's the real challenge, isn't it? I mean, it's a difficult thing that they have to do. Facebook's also had trouble getting their own video platform off the ground. So maybe there's kind of a mashup here between a Facebook product and an Instagram method of delivery too.
Instaface. You're right.
Instaface.
All right, let's take a moment to thank Shutterstock, our second sponsor of this episode of Tech News Today. At Shutterstock, this is the place to find the perfect image or the perfect video for your next creative project. You might be putting together a website or some sort of a publication, or maybe you're making an ad for your company or some sort of a video where you need very specific video where it's like, I don't know, out on the frozen tundra somewhere, and it's like you're never going to get out there. Any other type of project. Shutterstock is great for this. You can choose from over 26 million high-quality stock photos and illustrations and vectors and video clips. Shutterstock sources images from around the world, and many contributors to Shutterstock are also professional photographers and artists. Not only that, but Shutterstock goes through everything that's submitted to Shutterstock to make sure they've got the high quality videos and images up there. So you never have to worry is this stuff going to be good? Is it going to be worth my time? And Shutterstock is also adding 10,000 images every day. So even if you visited recently, you can be sure that when you visit again, you're going to find a bunch of new stuff. Shutterstock also has flexible pricing. You can choose from a couple different packs. You've got individual image packs, you've got monthly subscriptions, and you can download any image in any size and pay just one price. If you're looking for something and you just kind of want to drill down and see what Shutterstock has to offer, they've got great search tools too. You can drill down by subject or asset type or even gender, how specific your project might be. Maybe you perhaps want to search via an emotion. It's a lot of fun. Shutterstock also has a great iPad app for those of you who have iPads. Leo and I have showed it off on iPad today quite a bit. You can search on the go. You can use the app to display images during your presentations if you've got your iPad with you. And Shutterstock is a complete global offering. They've got offices all around the world, and you can bet that they're getting photos from around the world as well. So if you're interested, you can try Shutterstock today by signing up for a free account. Don't need a credit card. You just start an account and start using Shutterstock. Once you decide to purchase, use the offer code TNT6. That's TNT and the number 6. And new accounts will receive 30% off any package. Great, great value. Shutterstock.com. And for 30% off those new accounts, use the offer code TNT6. All right, what is next on the... this is kind of fun. Project Loon. I love the name of it. I have no idea what that means at face value. Ayaz, tell us more about it.
Sure. On Friday, Google introduced the world to Project Loon, which brings wireless internet access using balloons. Now, I looked at this story a bunch of times thinking, okay, is this April Fool's jokes? No, this is actually from Google X. This is one of their moonshot projects. And Google says that it believes that it might actually be possible to build a ring of balloons flying around the globe on the stratospheric winds that provides internet access to the Earth below. They've built a system that uses balloons to bring wireless speeds around 3G speeds. Now, the pilot program started in the Canterbury area of New Zealand with 50 testers trying to connect to the balloons. Google's still looking for partners to set this thing up. They say that it hopes that balloons could become an option for rural and remote areas. If there's disasters, they want to be able to send balloons there as well. This is part of Google X, like I mentioned before. And technologically, these devices are actually controlled using wind and solar power. So they figured out how to have a ring of these things. They fly about 20 kilometers into the air. And it seems insane or brilliant. Lon, what do you make of this idea that Google is... this is a project Google's actually working on.
Yeah, I could see Larry Page up there in like his evil platform of evilness or something, just kind of running the show. But it's fascinating. And what's neat about Google is that they've been doing a lot of these really audacious projects, like the self-driving car, and now this case with this balloon-based satellite alternative. I guess it's certainly a lot cheaper than putting your own satellites in orbit. I think the one problem they're going to run into is how the airspace rules work within each of these countries that are going to fly these things over. And I think that's something they're going to have to figure out. I mean, a lot of these countries probably don't have the means of shooting these balloons down, but there are international agreements and all that kind of stuff that they'll have to work through. But it's a fascinating project. I hope it's something that they can get going, just because satellite communication is really expensive.
Sarah, what do you make of this network of balloons that theoretically, from the videos that Google was showing, they explained that these balloons would be interfacing with an ISP, and that's how internet would get to other people? Should this be something that Google has for the public, this idea of a wireless network that's around the world, that you could use Google balloons for your phone?
Well, sure. I mean, I think at its root level, the idea that it could be bringing much faster speeds to areas of the world that currently can't enjoy it with something that's as simple as a balloon sort of floating above the air and not really bothering anybody sounds awesome. I'd like to know what partners Google might be trying to approach and what makes the most sense. Because, yeah, if Google does this on their own, kind of like a Google Fiber project, that's great. I mean, for the people that it helps out. And then we all have these questions like, well, what happens now? Google's an ISP. I mean, now what? I mean, how does this actually scale, this project? The airspace point that Lon brings up is really interesting, especially, it's sort of like, can you actually make sure that you control how high the balloons are and that there's not actually going to be interference and they're not low enough to interfere with stuff going on the ground and not high enough to, put anybody in danger. This is probably stuff that Google's still in the process of figuring out. But then again, at one point, Google Car is taking pictures of the entire world to put together Street View maps. Seemed crazy too, and now it's something that seems really, really pedestrian to me. So This is just, we got to explore the sky.
Street view pedestrian. That's how we did that. Really funny.
You like that?
Very Tom Merritt-like. Anyhow, I think this is nuts. I love the fact that Google has enough money and resources to do such crazy projects, but this could be incredibly useful, especially when areas are devastated by like hurricanes and things, where you lose that infrastructure. You don't have the cell phone towers working properly. You have a lot of these things failing. If you can actually send these things out to bring coverage where you don't have it, I'm just thinking this is fantastic. If this can work, and they can, if Google can get all these deals pretty much around the world, though, they have to make sure, because these balloons will be everywhere. If they can get the okay from everywhere else, it would be interesting. Although now with the whole NSA thing, people could be freaking out. Now these balloons are watching me. Shoot the balloons.
Furniture guy in chat says, it's a Skynet. How long until the balloon network becomes self-aware? That's a good question. I don't think we have the answer. Everybody panic. Speaking of panicking, people are worried about porn. Well, some people anyway. Parental filters for pornographic content will come as a default setting for all homes in the UK by the end of 2013, end of this year, says David Cameron's special advisor on preventing the sexualization and commercialization of childhood, Claire Perry, MP. She says in the UK, we'll have filters where if you do nothing, the parental filters will be turned on by default. So it's not as if you can't turn them off, but it's basically we're going to err on the side of filtering rather than not. Now, previously, there was a worry within some people in the community that the government would force ISPs in the future to block access to pornographic content unless a consumer specifically requested it. And people were saying, well, that's just insane. Now I'm going to have to specifically say, please give me porn. And that's a privacy violation. I don't want to have to do that. And that's asking too much. This seems not quite as severe, but still in many people's eyes going in the wrong direction. There is an ISP in the UK called TalkTalk that already makes consumers make parental filter choices. They've been doing this since March 2012. So basically, if you've got an account with them, you've got to make your choice one way or another. The company began doing the same with existing customers, so not just new signups, but everybody who's on our network has to explicitly tell us how they would like the parental controls to fall. And the UK government is indeed going to push ahead with a plan to make all public Wi-Fi spots free from adult content. So there's no sort of like, I would personally like to get the adult content, not when it's a public Wi-Fi spot. Lon, does this concern you? Do you think that there is a real privacy issue at here, or is this kind of just giving parents more choices?
I think we found in the last week nothing is private if your ISP knows about it, because they can tell the government at least. But I mean, I think it's good to give parents choices, and I think the problem is that when you make the choice for them, occasionally they're not aware of what else the kid might be doing. As you know, our kids these days are a lot savvier on technology than even us tech savvy adults are, and they're great little hackers. If they're not necessarily hacking something, they're figuring out ways of getting around restrictions. And there's so many ways, and I won't disclose them here, but there's so many ways that you can get to things that are filtered by your government or your parents without much effort. And I think educating parents might be a better effort than just blocking things outright.
Ayaz, do you think that it's a big deal that a parental control would be turned on by default? Maybe you'd never know it was there and figure that you were only seeing some of the internet, or is this just sort of like if as long as people are educated on what their choices are, it's okay?
Anytime government intervenes with the free internet, always seems a little bit scary to me. This seems to have a lot of good intentions when it comes to what kind of material they're trying to keep away from children and things like that. But this idea that these are pre-ticked, as they said, this would be the default that you'd be in, then you have to change things. I don't know if that's necessarily even a bad thing. Kind of like when you have safe search on Google search or on Bing or any of those things, you can turn that stuff off. Mm-hmm. It's more about not exposing people to things that you don't want to be exposed to. So I'm a little bit nervous about governments intervening, but it seems like it's got a good intention.
I think there's a whole perception too with something that's default is, if it's turned on by default, then this is probably the best thing for you. Sure, you can tinker a bit if you really want to be the person who customizes your internet experience, but if porn is filtered out by default, then you probably shouldn't be looking at it. I think that's how some people perceive that kind of a message, and then you get into, well, don't tell me what I should be doing or not doing on the internet. So it's certainly an interesting conversation to have. All right, let's move into conversations via Skype.
Yeah, so they announced that the video messaging feature is official today. It was a beta feature in February. Had a limitation of 20 free messages at the time. That's gone. You can send unlimited messages on Windows 8, Mac, iOS, Android, BlackBerry, and strangely, Windows Phone is left out of this for some reason. Lon, on the business side of Microsoft, do you find this strange that Skype, which is owned by Microsoft, doesn't bring this latest feature to Windows Phone?
It's strange from a business perspective, but maybe not strange from Microsoft's perspective, because they seem to be all over the place. They've got some really high functioning areas. Xbox, present controversies aside, has been doing quite well in its own little cocoon over there, where Windows has been on a totally different track. So yeah, it just is a confusing thing. I don't even know if I would even use it all that much either. It's just cool, making a video voice message. I could just email that from my iPhone, I guess too. So.
Yeah, these video messages I thought were a little strange when they were out in beta. It seems like Skype might be adding this kind of asynchronous kind of style of communication. I always think of it as calling people up, or you're going to have an instant message feature, instant message chat. Sarah, do you think they're going to be adding a lot more asynchronous stuff, like a messenger like this, kind of like more of an email style?
I just don't know who wants these video messages. I mean, I can see it coming up every so often, but it's like, this is just not something that I think, gosh, if only Skype had these other features that don't have to do with a live conversation between two people, I'd use it so much more. I feel like it serves a really good purpose, and as it is, and I don't know. I mean, am I missing something?
Well, video messages make sense on social networks, right? That's fine.
Yeah.
If I left a message on, not Twitter, but something like Facebook, that's okay. People are kind of used to this idea, or any of these apps where you can share messages that way. Does it make more sense for those mobile apps, or is this Skype kind of changing what it's doing? That's what I'm kind of curious about. It's social network, it's accepted, but on Skype it seems a little strange. But what's the difference, really?
I guess because Skype still seems so much like a one-on-one tool. Even though you can have group video calls, it's less social networky and more of a, replicating the phone, the traditional conversation. Then again, I don't think Skype has anything to lose by adding features like this, especially if people are like, well, I'm used to video messages that I do a certain way in a very popular app like WhatsApp or something like that. Or yes, some of the tools that Facebook offers. I don't think that it diminishes the Skype experience at all to have a fully featured set of video tools. I still just am not sure how much people will take advantage of it.
Yeah, it's definitely an oddity as it comes to Skype. But the fact that you could do it free and unlimited, I think that's pretty cool, because you don't have to upload a video, you don't have to host it anywhere, you don't have to do any attachments, none of that. You just send this video straight up that way, except on Windows Phone for now.
And one thing just to add on this, I think Microsoft has built a huge, well, not Microsoft, Skype has built a huge user base that I don't think they know what to do with. They're trying to merge Messenger into this thing now, and maybe they're just trying to find ways to get Skype users to engage more. I mean, the only time I boot Skype up is when I have to make a call. I'm not in it like I'm in Facebook or Twitter or any of the other social networks I use. And maybe that's what they're trying to do here. It's the one thing that Microsoft has with a ton of users available to them.
Yeah, maybe that's part of it too, because I do know people who basically have Skype open. They've got a ton of contacts on Skype, and it's sort of their IM engine. Mm-hmm. It's a place to do video calls. You sort of you got that whole chat thing built in. I've never used it that way, but maybe Microsoft thinks, well, if we have a more fully featured set, we'll have people in Skype all day using it for a variety of reasons, whether it's messaging or calling or little video clips, etc.
Oh, it's being social on Skype, that's just weird. I mean, you have to call people, talk to them. Now you got to leave them messages.
Too complicated.
Yeah.
Another inbox. What do we need that for?
You know what else is complicated? The randomizer. At least it's complicated for me, because when you put robots and cats together, my head explodes. Over in Switzerland, at the laboratories of the École Polytechnique Fédérale de Lausanne, the Cheetah Cub robot has been developed. This is a 4-legged robot that was modeled after a house cat. The scientist focused on designing legs that moved like a cat, or more like a cat than previous robots have been. They say that they paid particular attention to the stability, especially when moving across uneven surfaces. Cats famously are, pretty stable. And it's, if you look at this video, this it's weird because there's at least, hopefully we'll be able to see part of the video where he's sort of walking this robot on a leash. There we go. It's like, I don't think it looks much like a cat, but I guess actually it does move quite a bit like a cat, and it comes across as very lifelike.
We've always seen that dog one. That one's much creepier looking than this little cat one. This is a very small robot, and I'm sure this is going to be used for all kinds of delicate situations because cats are so balanced. But I'm just thinking I want a robot pet because once they had the Sony Aibo a long time ago, I want a robot dog. That was great. Now you can get a robot cat that moves like a cat. I don't know if it's going to walk onto your keyboard and sit there. It's a wirelessly charge or something, but I could see it getting very annoying very fast.
Lon, are you a robot cat fan?
Well, I think what they should do, and my wife is not a cat fan, therefore I cannot have a cat. I have a dog. But I think if they do the Kickstarter and advertise it on Reddit, they'll have $150 million tomorrow. So that's what I would suggest that they do.
Yeah, I think Catbot is pretty much an internet win just by concept alone. Also, real cats don't like to be walked on leashes as a rule. So right here, this is just a lot more fun.
Well, if they want it to be an internet win, it has to have bacon somewhere in it, too. So you got Catbot with bacon, you'll tell you, there you go.
Add a keyboard, internet gold.
There you go.
You'll be a trillionaire. All right, let's move on to the calendar. Ring. Oh, you want to do it? Or you want me to do it?
I'll do it.
All right, fine.
Okay, we got a conference coming up on the 18th. You can see how well prepared I am for calendar.
Sorry.
O'Reilly Velocity Web Performance and Operations Conference is tomorrow, the 18th of June. Also tomorrow, the 18th, Huawei is hosting a beauty event in London, so get your cameras out. And Dig's Google Reader Replacement Beta Access opens on June 26th. Friends and family on the 19th.
Thank you. Let's see what's incoming.
Should we do the ad?
Oh, yes. Oh, I'm sorry. That's what...
That's okay.
Stupid me. Somebody's
Just
got
before
a
we
case of the
suddenly end the show.
Mondays. Yes, before we see what's incoming, let's thank Ringcentral for sponsoring this episode of Tech News Today. We've told you about Ringcentral back when we were building this lovely studio that I sit in now. We chose to do as much as we could through the cloud. We wanted to store documents in the cloud. We wanted to hold meetings in the cloud. And we didn't want a PBX system. That's kind of the traditional system. It would take up a lot of room. We'd have to put it down in the basement. So our IT guy, Russell, said, you know what you should do? Just go cloud-based with your whole internal phone system. It's Ringcentral. It's a no-brainer. There are zero startup costs, which is great, especially for smaller companies. No PBX hardware to install. Certainly nothing to maintain. Ringcentral allows us to customize all of our call handling. You get your voicemail in your email, which is awesome because many of us are, not always there to answer our phone, but we're certainly always connected to our email. And we can get all of our fax messages on our smartphones as well. They have a new feature, Ringcentral Conferencing. So you get a single conference bridge number, and then it's ready for unlimited conference calls for up to 1,000 participants. So, maybe you've got a big meeting, you got a lot of people who got to dial in. Lots of features like that for Ringcentral. You can mute participants, you can get a caller count, you can record your conferences, all sorts of good stuff. Ringcentral offers all-inclusive pricing as low as $20 per month per user, and you can start right now with a 30-day risk-free trial. They have a special offer for our viewers and listeners of TNT. When you buy one desk phone, you can get a second phone free up to 20 phones. All right, here's a number you can call if you're interested. Call 1-800-543-9980. Once again, that's 800-543-9980. Fine, I'll tell you once more. 800-543-9980. Or you can go to ringcentral.com and use the promo code TWIT. Once again, ringcentral.com and use that promo code TWIT. And thanks to Ringcentral for sponsoring us. All right, now that I am less jumbled, let's see what's incoming.
Incoming message.
Sure, we got a message from Andy. He says, been listening to your shows, and I'm starting to think that with all of Yahoo's acquisitions this year, they might be doing something like a Yahoo operating system. Think of this, Sumly, a mobile news app, that'd be its news. Loki Studios for mobile gaming, that'd be its game center. Ghostbird mobile photography apps, that'd be its photo app. And Rondi does video conferencing, that'd be its FaceTime equivalent. Seems like a good start for a mobile operating system. That's from Andy. Lon, do you think that Yahoo's working on a mobile OS?
It could be. I mean, Marissa Mayer has brought a lot of energy back to Yahoo, where we're no longer kind of talking about their demise, but what are they up to? And I think that's an exciting change right off the bat there. So I think they've got a lot of neat things ahead, and I think mobile is where everyone's going to be. And there hasn't really been a dominating factor yet in mobile. I mean, Facebook's there and everyone else is there, but there hasn't been this all-in-one kind of inclusive environment, and maybe that's what she's looking to build.
I wonder if Yahoo can make their own customized Android just to stick it to Google. It's like, all right, this is the Yahoo version. We got our apps. There you go.
They could always base it off of the open source Android operating system too. So there's always it's probably a lot easier to start your own OS now than it used to be.
But is it going to be a good one? That is the question.
It'll be purple.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It'll be exclamatory.
That's half the battle.
That's it for this edition of Tech News Today. Lon Seidman, thanks so much for joining us. Tell folks what you're up to online and how they can follow your work.
Well, you can go to lonseidman.com. That's my Google Plus page. It's got all the stuff that I got too many things going on. I gotta start scaling back a little bit here. But I'm also doing a podcast with Tim Street called Behind the Video. We do that on Google Plus as well, and you can check it out on my page there or on iTunes. And we talk about independent content and really the big developments happening for independent creators out there. It's been a fun show that we've been doing.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for taking the time to join us today and helping us make some sense of the news. Also, thanks to everybody who submitted stories and voted them up and down on our subreddit, technewstoday.reddit.com. It's a great place. If you've got ideas for stories you think that we should talk about on the show, you could submit them here, and you can just vote stories up and down as well. We look at those every morning and get some really great ideas. So thanks to everybody who contributes to our subreddit every day. And thanks to all of you for watching and listening. You can write us at tnt@twit.tv. Give us a call at 260-TNT-SHOW. We'll be back tomorrow with Mark Turpin, a.k.a. The Terpster. See you then.